Hi there, everyone. Hi there, Unite for Her community. Sue Weldon here, and welcome to our Ask the Experts. Here we are with our April edition, and we're so excited to have a special guest with us today. Before I introduce her, I just wanted to let you know that we are streaming live and we're using the chat, so please feel free to comment, ask questions, just utilize the chat and answer as much as we can. This Ask the Experts series, we're going to be discussing disability insurance and asking all of your commonly asked questions. Our expert guest today is the CEO of Triage Cancer, Joanna Morales, and we're so honored to have her. She's been such a strong partner of ours, and we can't not thank enough our presenting sponsor, Merck, who is our Ask the Experts digital education series sponsor. So thank you for all that support and bringing this very important information out to our community. So another reminder before we get started is that we have another Ask the Experts coming up in April. Again, we had quite a demand this month on Thursday, the 28th. It starts at 12 noon Eastern Time with Lisa Levitt-Gaines, and she's going to be answering all of your questions about lymphedema and lymphatic massage. All right. So now it's time for me to bring in our guest, and then I can have her front and center. So Joanna, welcome. How are you? We're going to bring you in. Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Again, we love being able to partner with you and really get this expert advice. A little bit about Joanna. Let me give a bio on you. You're a cancer rights attorney, an author, a speaker, and CEO of Triage Cancer, national nonprofit organization providing free education on practical and legal issues that may impact individuals coping with cancer and their caregivers. Joanna has spent over 25 years working on behalf of individuals with cancer and has presented nearly 1,000 education seminars on employment, insurance, healthcare, and advocacy issues throughout the country. Further ado, welcome, Joanna.
Thank you, Sue. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. All right, we're going to dive in, and we like this to just be like Q&A, and anytime we get anything in the stream, I'll ask it. I am going to switch the screen to put you front and center, Joanna, and let's just start with what is disability insurance? If you can just help us, get that leveling field for that.
Sure. So disability insurance is a type of insurance that allows you to get paid if you have to take time off work because of a medical condition. So if you're unable to work, it's replacing the wages that you're losing because you're needing to take time off work.
Great. And then are there different types of insurance, disability insurance?
There are. So there is private disability insurance that you can buy directly from an insurance company, or you can get it as an employee benefit. So your employer is offering you that private disability insurance policy. And those policies can be short-term or long-term. So short-term disability insurance policies typically last up to a year, whereas long-term disability policies are typically for medical conditions that last at least a year or longer. Then there are also state disability insurance policies. So there's a handful of states. So by handful, I just mean 5 and Puerto Rico. So California, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Hawaii all offer state programs where you pay into those programs through your payroll taxes, where you can actually get access to disability insurance benefits if you need to take time off work because of a medical condition. And then there are 2 federal long-term disability programs that are both run through the Social Security Administration. The first is Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, and then there's Supplemental Security Income, which is SSI.
Okay. Wow. I'm really glad that you are here for our community. I think about, a cancer diagnosis, and like all of this can be so daunting, right? So to have somebody there that can walk it through and get on your site and just have all this information there available, I appreciate it greatly, especially as a survivor. Thank you for walking through them. I did not know all those different disability insurance. Can I get disability insurance like after a cancer diagnosis?
Well, if it's a private disability insurance policy, generally, once you have a pre-existing medical condition like a cancer diagnosis, it's very difficult to go and buy a disability insurance policy. And unfortunately, most people don't proactively go and purchase disability insurance. It's just one of those types of insurance that most people don't think of or don't want to invest in, like we have a health insurance policy or even dental or vision. So the problem with disability insurance is that the pre-existing condition protections that came with the Affordable Care Act that apply to health insurance don't apply to disability insurance or life insurance or even long-term care insurance. So once you have a pre-existing condition, it's very hard to get. And because most people don't proactively buy policies, they're often left out of that option, which is why it's important to understand the other options that might be available to you at the state or federal level, or to find out if your employer offers that coverage. Because I cannot tell you over the years how many people have said to me, I don't have disability insurance. And then I sent them back to their employee manual, and it turned out that they did have disability insurance through their employer, but it was just a piece of paper they signed on their first day of work, and then they forgot all about it. And it's easy to forget about, because if the employer pays the premium and you don't need it, you don't think about it. Yeah. So it's always a good idea to double check to see if it's something that you have access to through your employer.
Yeah, such a good tip. Yeah, for sure. Does the disability insurance, does it work with other employment protections?
It does. So you have to remember that disability insurance is just about replacing the money that you're missing because you're not working. It's not providing job protection or health insurance protection. So there are other laws that might be helpful to you if you do need to take time off work because of your medical condition. So there, at the federal level, there's the Americans with Disabilities Act, where you could take time off as a reasonable accommodation, or under the Family and Medical Leave Act, or the FMLA, you can take time off either for your own serious medical condition or as a caregiver. So both of those laws can work with the disability insurance options, because those laws are protecting your job, giving you access to accommodations, helping you take time off, and then disability insurance is what's paying you.
Yeah. I think you answered a little bit of this, but, is it difficult to get that approved, to get approved for disability insurance?
Unfortunately, it depends on what type of disability insurance we're talking about. So generally with private disability insurance, it's a little bit easier to actually get access to that coverage once you tell your employer that you need to take time off work and you tap into that disability insurance program through those companies. Then it's not that difficult to get access to it. But it is possible that you might get denied, and then you have the right to appeal that denial and provide more information about why you need to take time off. State disability insurance is also easier to get access to. It's a lower standard of disability, so you don't have such a severe disability to get access to those benefits. But the two federal programs, SSDI and SSI, those have the highest standard of disability in all the laws and programs that we talk about. And so they're looking at not just that you have a medical condition that's keeping you from working, but that medical condition has to last at least a year or longer, and it's keeping you from doing your current job and really any job that you've had for the last 15 years. So you really have to be unable to work in order to tap into those benefits.
Okay. We actually do have some questions in the chat, which I'm grateful that, we're able to interact live. And Diane was asking, how does this work if you're retired?
That depends on how you've retired. So if you have the type of job where you might have a pension, then if you haven't tapped into your Social Security retirement benefits, if you also have access to those benefits, and you're younger than your full retirement age, then you can still likely tap into the state and federal disability benefits if you're unable to work. But if you've already filed for Social Security retirement benefits because you're over the age of 65 or have reached your full retirement age, then you can't actually access Social Security disability insurance because it's effectively the same set of benefits. When you apply for SSDI, it's like getting access to your retirement benefits early because you have a disability. So it's the same pool of money, so you can't get both.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Hopefully that helped you out there, Diane. Do I have to hire like an attorney to get disability insurance?
You don't. We get that question quite a bit. It seems kind of daunting to figure out your disability insurance options and then to start an application, but you definitely don't need to hire an attorney to apply for disability benefits. At triagecancer.org, we have a disability topics page, which has all sorts of resources from animated videos to full-length webinars to explain disability insurance options and then to give you tips on applying. And then if your application does get denied, you do have the right to appeal. And it's really important that people appeal any denials because unfortunately the system is set up to deny applications. In fact, about 65% of all applications get denied the first time around. So you're much more likely to get access to the benefits that you need if you go through the appeals process. Now, the second step in the appeals process is to say to Social Security, can you reconsider my application? It's called a request for reconsideration. But then if you still get denied, then it goes to an administrative law judge hearing. And that's really unlike the courtroom television dramas that you've seen. It's just a judge and you, and if you've brought an attorney to represent you, and then there's usually a vocational expert as well. And it's the judge who asks the questions. And the judge is going to ask you things like, how long can you sit? How long can you stand? How much can you lift? To get a sense of how your medical condition or conditions are impacting your ability to work. And that judge has a lot of discretion to make that decision in that hearing. Sometimes it can be really helpful to hire an attorney at that stage because those attorneys are experienced in the process and they work with those judges and the vocational experts every day. And it can just be helpful to have someone who knows the landscape to facilitate getting you through that process. But it is still not required for you to hire an attorney at that stage. You can go into that hearing by yourself and tell the judge about how your medical condition is affecting your ability to work.
Nice. You had said earlier, like so many cases get denied, such a high percent. The second time around, is it still a high percent or do you have a better chance?
You do have a better chance. It's about 50% at the next stage, and it's about 50% after that.
Okay.
So, your chances definitely improve as you get through the process. I think what is important to remember is to understand that sometimes people discount their symptoms or they minimize them.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to not just talk about the thing that is affecting you the most, but to really talk about all the symptoms that you're experiencing, whether they be physical or emotional or mental. And oftentimes it's the combination of all of those things that really makes it difficult for someone with a cancer diagnosis to work. All of the side effects of treatment combined. So it's important to talk about all of those things and to really explain how those medical conditions impact your ability to work, because that's really all they care about. Disability insurance is just about connecting your medical condition to your ability to do your job.
Okay. Yeah, it's a collective, right? It's a collective type of approach with emotional and physical strain. And we know what that feels like for a cancer diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And treatment and beyond. Can people still apply while they're working?
When we're talking about private disability insurance, or state disability insurance, the answer is really no, because at that point you're applying because you're not able to work.
Okay.
When we're talking about SSI and SSDI, you theoretically could still be working when you start to apply for the process. And Social Security goes through a 5-step process to decide if someone has a disability. And the first question in that process is, are you working? And if you answer yes to that, then you actually get kicked out of the process. But the whole question is actually, are you working and earning more than a certain amount of money each month? And that threshold is called substantial gainful activity. And so if you earn under that amount each month, then you're not actually working according to the Social Security Administration. So you might be working, but you're not substantially gainfully engaging in activity according to them, and therefore you're not working according to them. So it's a little bit of a detail that's important to know. You could be earning some money, but under that threshold, and then be able to keep going in the process. But it does create a practical problem where if you're working right now, but you're telling the Social Security Administration you're not able to work, that's a catch-22. So you're going to have to explain why it is you can work maybe today, but at some point you're not going to be able to work. So that comes up a lot in the context of a cancer diagnosis. So maybe today you are going through chemotherapy, but in 3 weeks you're going to have surgery, and at that point you're not going to be able to work. Or maybe you're having a bone marrow transplant. So there are reasons why someone might be able to work today, but at some point moving forward, they're not going to be able to work. And then Social Security is going to determine that their disability begins on the day they're no longer able to work. And that's called the disability onset date.
Okay. Is that threshold, you talked about this threshold that they can't make over, is that standard for everybody, or?
It is standard for everybody, but it does change each year according to cost of living adjustments.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so is there anything that we can do to speed up the process, the application process? I was curious on how long does all this take, right?
When we're talking about state disability insurance and private insurance, it happens pretty quickly. And it is going to depend on the company and how long it takes to process claims or the state process. But when we're talking about Social Security, the Social Security Administration is horribly backlogged, and it can take months for an application to be approved, especially if you also have to go through the appeals process. And that's why we really encourage people to understand the process so they don't give up and they pursue it, because even if you're at a place where you can't work now and maybe it's months that you're unable to work, but then at some point you are able to go back to work, if your application still hasn't been approved, they're going to owe you back benefits for the time that you weren't able to work. So we always encourage people, don't give up on the process to be able to get what you need. Now, unfortunately, because the process does take a long time, there are some ways to speed up the first stage in the process. And one of the most common ways is called compassionate allowances. And that is basically just a list of medical conditions where if you have a medical condition on that list, you're presumptively eligible for benefits, which is actually not the same thing as saying you automatically qualify. It just means that you have a medical condition that we think is so severe that it's pretty likely you're going to qualify. So we're just going to speed up this step in the process and then look to see how it keeps you from working. So, for example, metastatic breast cancer is a medical condition on the compassionate allowances list. And so if you're applying for disability benefits, it's important to actually say you have a medical condition on that compassionate allowances list, because it will help speed up the process. There are some other unofficial ways that can help speed up the process, and that is really related to medical conditions that are terminal.
Okay. Is there a list that is public? Like, can you see this list somewhere? So when you go in, you know what you're going to do as you apply?
Yes. So if you go to Social Security's website, which is just ssa.gov / compassionate allowances, it will show you the full list of medical conditions.
Okay, remember that, compassionate allowances. We have actually Susan in the audience today, and she was just saying she's just trying to figure all that out, like as a metastatic breast cancer thriver. So I think that's really important to know that compassionate, allowances side that could really help the process.
Absolutely.
And the expectation, right?
Yeah. And Susan, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Triage Cancer. We have a legal and financial navigation program where you can contact us at triagecancer.org / get help.
Yeah. Awesome. Terrific. We just put that in the chat as well. So let me ask you this. We talked about, getting denied and then try again and denied and try. Like, what if you're just denied? Like,
it is possible that you can get through all the stages of the appeals process and still get denied. I think that it's unlikely when we're talking about a cancer diagnosis, especially if you have advanced cancer, where you're going to be denied. But most of the time, if you can pursue the appeals process, you're much more likely to get access to the benefits that you need. So we often talk about this in the context of health insurance, why it's so important to appeal any denials. The same thing exists when we talk about disability insurance.
Okay, good to know. So what do I do if I want to try and get back to work?
That's a question that comes up quite a bit for someone who's been on disability benefits and is feeling like maybe they want to try to go back to work, but are really worried that if you go back to work and maybe aren't up to it, do you have to start this whole process over again and apply for disability benefits from the beginning? And Social Security sort of anticipated that. And they really want to help people try to go back to work. They don't want people to be on disability benefits forever. They want to help people get back into the workplace. And so they have a whole series of programs called work incentives. And this includes everything from vocational rehabilitation and job coaching and resume review services. But they also have a trial return to work period where you can actually try to go back to work, be earning income from that job, and still keep access to your cash benefits and the health insurance coverage that's connected to your disability insurance benefits. So if you have SSI, you might also have Medicaid, and where you have SSDI, you might also have Medicare. So it allows you to keep access to all of those things while you're trying to go to work. And it allows you to do that for 9 months out of a 5-year period. So you could try to go back to work for a month, and then if you need to, you can come back. If 3 months later, you want to try again, you could try for a month, and then if it doesn't work out, you can come back to benefits. So it allows you to do that for up to 9 months out of 5 years.
Wow.
But if you do successfully go back to work and later down the road, maybe even a year or two down the road, you find that you need to come back to your benefits, they have a process where they can reinstate your benefits rather than you actually starting the process from the beginning. So they really do try to create a safety net to help people go back to work.
Yeah, that's really good to know. Susan, the website is triagecancer.org. So you can just go to .org, not .com. And I'm sure as a Google search, you will find that. That's so good. I learned so much. Thank you, Joanna. I feel like, that is just such a wealth of information. And it sounds like you get yourself right on your website, and just being able to have those, simple terms and videos to watch and how to do the process. Because you do feel like sometimes you need a lawyer to walk you through, and you don't want to miss anything. And you just feel like it's not your space, you're not qualified enough. And I'm really grateful for everything that you put together and what you're leading there over at Triage Cancer. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing this information. We actually exist because we feel like people shouldn't have to be a lawyer to navigate all of these issues. So we want people to have the information that they need.
Yeah, totally. Good. Well, thank you for joining us. And again, Triage Cancer, any of your insurance needs, disability needs, legal needs, all those daunting things that come when you have a diagnosis, please go there. Wealth of information, and you can see it right in the chat. So thank you so much, Joanna. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right, everyone, that's the end of our Ask the Experts, and that is for this one in April. We'll have another one, like we talked about, on the 28th at 12 o'clock. Be great for you to join us then. And again, we thank our presenting sponsor, Merck, for being here for us so that we can have incredible guests like Joanna on today and just get that information out and just feel like you're more empowered. It's all about gaining that control back. All right, everyone, have a good day.